The toxic sister-in-law falsely accused me of cheating and nearly ruined my marriage. Now she's shocked she's being cut out of the will and is playing the victim. I'm 29 and recently married Finn, who's 30. We had a beautiful wedding. A month passed and everything was perfect, until his crazy sister decided to interfere in our lives and ruined everything. For context, Finn has a younger sister named Deborah, 28. She's estranged from their parents. I get along great with them, but with Deborah, things were always tense. She's incredibly negative, manipulative, and toxic. For years, I tried to stay on her good side. Finn and I have been together for 8 years, and throughout that time, she constantly spoke badly about others, endlessly complained about her parents, who, while not perfect, aren't abusive or cruel, and spent all her time whining about her miserable life. How some boss or friend wronged her, or why she had to quit yet another job. Over time, I saw the pattern. She almost never takes responsibility for conflicts and always tries to turn people against others so they'll pity her and see her as a victim. 6 months ago, I learned her marriage ended because of her gambling addiction. It was a shock. No one even knew she gambled. Turns out she hid it very well, quietly paying off debts using her ex-husband's money. Eventually, he figured it out when thousands of dollars started going missing and confronted her. When the truth came out, he tried to help her, but she refused to listen. In the end, he had no choice but to divorce her. Since then, she's only gotten worse. Being around Deborah became unbearable. The addiction destroyed her personality, and the divorce didn't change her for the better. She became even more insufferable. I always tried to stay neutral and supportive when we met up because I didn't want to give her a reason to hate me. She lives on the other side of the country, so luckily we only saw each other once or twice a year. When Finn and I got engaged, something snapped in Deborah. It started when she stormed out of the room in rage after we announced our engagement at Christmas last year. She later apologized, claiming our news reminded her of her failed relationships. Despite her initial resistance, she agreed to be a bridesmaid and pretended to support us, though the tension was always there. At first, she acted friendly. Then she started ignoring me. Oddly enough, she still participated in all the wedding prep, dress shopping, and the bachelorette party, all while openly criticizing everything about the wedding. Finn and his mom had to call her out multiple times, but it didn't help. I even gently confronted her. I hate conflict, and asked if I had done something wrong. She brushed it off and said everything was fine. Shortly before the wedding, Finn's parents planned a family vacation for all of us. I was nervous about being around Deborah for several days since she had already been getting on my nerves. Predictably, she was in a horrible mood the entire trip. She lashed out at everyone and demanded the furniture in our rental house be rearranged because she didn't like the layout. Her parents and my fiancé often gave in to her absurd behavior because they were afraid of her tantrums. They did everything she asked just to keep her quiet. After a couple of days, I couldn't take it anymore and started avoiding her. Unfortunately, she noticed. When I politely declined her unsolicited advice about my career, she accused me of snapping at her, though honestly, it was tempting after all these years. She tried to paint me as the bad guy in front of everyone. I firmly told her I was a professional in my field and that I earn a high salary for a reason. I didn't need her opinion. I was shocked by her audacity, especially since she knows nothing about my work. But that didn't stop her from sticking her nose in. The rest of the vacation, she basically stalked me, trying to force me into having a conversation about how I had attacked her. Finn later told me that every night after I went to bed, she'd sit with him and his mom, whining about how she didn't understand why I was so cold to her. She kept saying I always spoke down to her like she was stupid. When Finn tried to explain my side, she shut him down and accused him of changing since the engagement. When the vacation finally ended, I was relieved not to see her again. I chose to move on and focus on wedding planning. Meanwhile, Deborah started spreading lies about me to Finn's relatives. I might have ignored it if one of Finn's cousins hadn't called us to ask about a rumor Deborah had spread, that I mistreat Finn, and that he's miserable with me. Finn immediately told his cousin it was complete nonsense and that he was perfectly happy in our relationship. It became clear Deborah was manipulating people to make me look bad. Finn and I talked about it, and he admitted he was extremely disappointed in her and agreed she had crossed a line, damaging our reputation with his family. I decided I didn't want her toxic energy at our wedding. I invited my in-laws and Deborah to lunch to address the situation openly. Finn couldn't join due to a work trip. At lunch, I was direct. I told Deborah if she kept spreading lies about me, she wouldn't be invited to the wedding. She immediately screamed that I had no right to talk to her like that. My MIL asked her to calm down, but she kept yelling that I was just a poor girl lucky to land her rich brother and that I should treat her with more respect. I stared at her blankly while she accused me of being a gold digger. My MIL quickly told her to shut up and scolded her for her rude behavior. My FIL looked furious and started apologizing to me for his daughter's actions. Deborah tried to argue, claiming I was trying to steal their family inheritance. I interrupted and reminded her that I'm financially independent and come from a wealthy family myself. Maybe we're not as rich as Finn's, but we're far from struggling. I told her that her condescending attitude toward me likely stems from the fact that we're immigrants, which to her apparently means we must be poor. Deborah's eyes widened and she started stammering, unable to respond. I made it clear this was her last chance to change, and if she continued, we'd cut her out of the wedding completely. She looked furious but had nothing else to say. I returned, home still upset. When Finn came back from his trip, he immediately sensed something was wrong and asked about it. I told him everything. When I explained exactly what Deborah had accused me of, he was livid. He said she had no right to speak to me that way. He called his parents immediately, and they had a long talk. They all agreed Deborah had spiraled out of control. They quietly reached out to a few of her friends to find out what was really going on. Turns out she was still deep in her gambling addiction, continuing to fuel her destructive habit. This news shook everyone, especially her parents, who had given her access to their bank account. They panicked, realizing she might gamble away all their money. Finn had a serious talk with her. It was hard, but he wanted her to get help. Predictably, Deborah was stubborn and refused to admit she had a real problem. Things escalated when her parents cut her off from their bank account. Deborah stormed into their house, screaming at the top of her lungs. She accused them of betrayal, said they didn't understand her, and claimed her gambling addiction was none of their business. She raged over being cut off, insisting the money was hers too. Worse, she started ranting that everyone just wanted to control her life. It was a full-blown meltdown. The emotions were intense, and no one could calm her down. Finn told me what happened. He looked deeply worried. He and his parents didn't know how to help her. They considered therapy and support groups, but knew Deborah would refuse. A couple of weeks later, Finn's parents invited us to dinner. It was clear from the start the conversation would be serious. They looked more tense than ever. They confessed their growing fear that Deborah's addiction would lead her to drain the entire family fortune. They didn't want to enable her by leaving her anything in the will. Finn tried to object, saying it might be unfair, because despite everything she was doing, he still loved her. I agreed with him too. Despite my attitude towards Deborah, I believed she had the right to an equal share of the inheritance from their parents, just like Finn. But Finn's mother interrupted us and anxiously shared that she had recently discovered some jewelry missing, pieces she had inherited from her grandmother. The jewelry was worth several thousand, and the parents were very alarmed. They decided to review the security footage and saw Deborah entering their bedroom and stealing the jewelry from the safe. There was a dead silence in the room. Everyone was trying to grasp the scale of the betrayal. The in-laws said they tried talking to Deborah about it, but she refused to admit guilt despite the clear evidence. That's why, with heavy hearts, they decided to completely exclude her from the will. Finn was shocked, but understood the seriousness of the situation. It became clear that Deborah's actions not only ruined family relationships, but also posed a real financial threat to the family. Now we understood why his parents were planning to make changes to their will. They wanted to protect their assets from Deborah. It was a hard decision, but they felt they had to do it for the financial security and future of the entire family. Finn and I supported them. Of course, it wasn't easy, but it was necessary to protect everyone's interests. In the following days, Finn and his parents began consulting lawyers to navigate the details of changing the will. They wanted to include wording that couldn't be challenged so that Deborah couldn't claim anything. The wedding was quickly approaching, and despite all this family chaos, I was fully immersed in preparations, fittings, organizing, and final touches. Then, suddenly, Deborah started interfering with the wedding again. She came to the dress fitting, attended the bachelorette party, and kept loudly criticizing absolutely everything related to the preparation. I had to talk to her again, gently. As usual, I hate conflict, and simply asked if I had done something wrong. Despite all the negativity from Deborah, the wedding day turned out to be a true celebration of love. The ceremony venue was decorated with flowers and elegant decor. The atmosphere was magical. Surrounded by friends and family, Finn and I exchanged heartfelt vows, sealing our commitment to each other. But even in these joyful moments, I felt anxious. I noticed how distant and displeased Deborah acted during the celebration. She sat in a corner with a sour expression that betrayed her true feelings. No matter how hard I tried to focus on the event, I couldn't completely ignore that shadow of resentment and bitterness from Deborah. Nonetheless, the love and support from the other guests outweighed her toxicity, and despite everything, our wedding remains a bright and happy memory. After a wonderful honeymoon, we returned home and slipped back into our usual routine. Work, daily chores, and everything seemed to be back to normal. But yesterday, out of nowhere, my crazy sister-in-law stirred up trouble in our marriage. Again. She invited herself over for dinner, saying she missed Finn and hadn't seen him in a while. Finn asked if I minded if she came, and I reluctantly agreed, not wanting to be rude. While we were peacefully having dinner, Deborah suddenly started ranting about how she despises cheaters and that cheaters are worthless pieces of crap. Finn and I exchanged confused looks, wondering where this was going. Then she stared directly at me and asked, "What's it like to be a worthless piece of crap?" I frowned in confusion, and then Deborah started screaming, accusing me of cheating with a coworker named Matt. She showed some photos she had taken herself, where I was, with this coworker, and waved them around, claiming she had caught us red-handed. I knew I had never cheated on Finn. The photos clearly showed innocent moments, coffee, lunch, and sometimes, because of long cafeteria lines at work, my colleague and I would go to a nearby cafe. But Deborah twisted these random moments into supposed proof of an affair. In reality, her accusations had no basis whatsoever. I felt anger boiling inside me. She was trying to ruin my reputation and destroy my relationship with Finn. Before I could say anything, my shocked and clearly upset husband stepped in to defend me. He asked Deborah why she had been following me and taking photos of me with co-workers without my consent. She began justifying herself, saying she wanted to investigate to make sure I wasn't trying to scam him out of money. Finn firmly said her accusations were baseless and that she was just creating unnecessary drama. He tried to reason with her, asking her to stop lying and destroying our relationship, but Deborah wouldn't back down. She continued accusing me of cheating and manipulating Finn. It escalated to the point where she claimed she was just trying to protect her brother from me because, according to her, I was nothing more than a gold digger. The atmosphere grew tense, and her accusations got louder. She pulled out a screenshot of a conversation she allegedly had with someone from my company on Facebook. In the screenshot, Deborah asks if I'm dating that coworker, and the person replies that we seem suspiciously close, implying it's possible. She shoved the screenshot in Finn's face, saying he needed to protect himself and that I was a threat to our marriage. Finn looked at the screenshot with a puzzled expression. Despite my sincere reassurances that the photos were innocent, I felt his trust crack. I began protesting. This was complete nonsense. Deborah had made up a ridiculous story to ruin our marriage. To my surprise, Finn turned to me and asked, "Are you sure there was nothing between you and that guy in the pictures?" I was stunned that he even asked. I had never given him any reason to doubt me during our entire relationship. Deborah began mocking me, saying I was speechless because her accusations were true and I'd been caught in a lie. I shouted at Deborah to get out of our house, but Finn said I couldn't speak to his sister like that. Shocked by his words, I told him that if he didn't believe me, he could leave with his sister because I couldn't do anything else to change his mind. I felt the tension in the room rise as Deborah kept accusing me of stealing her brother, to live in luxury, and that I had never really loved him. Her words started to truly infuriate me. I couldn't believe Deborah had gone so far off the rails, making up such absurd lies and trying to destroy our marriage. Realizing I had nothing left to lose, I smirked and told her she clearly had an unhealthy obsession with her brother and that she had now crossed the line. She tried to argue back, but I interrupted and said, "How sad that your own family isn't as obsessed with you as you are with other people's lives." Then I added that her beloved brother Finn and their parents had already decided to change the will, that they were already taking steps to rewrite it and exclude her from it, and that it was happening right under her nose. Deborah's face instantly changed, from rage and accusations to disbelief and shock. She began stuttering, trying to process that her family was really planning to change the will. Her eyes widened as she realized the gravity of what was happening, and the room fell silent. Finn tried to signal to me to stop, probably already regretting what was going on, but I reminded him that just a few minutes ago he had sided with Deborah and accused me of cheating, so he had no right to ask me to stop now. Caught in the crossfire of family drama and unexpected revelations, Finn's gaze darted between me and Deborah. She clearly didn't know what to do. The atmosphere in the room was electric. Everyone was trying to process what had just happened. Then I simply told them both to get out of the house. I made it clear I was done with their drama and wouldn't tolerate it any longer. I told Finn not to come back until he apologized for believing his sister's nonsense. Finn didn't argue. He just took his sister and left. Since that incident, my in-laws have been constantly calling and texting me, worried. I haven't read their messages or answered the phone. After everything that happened, I feel emotionally drained. I wonder if I was wrong for telling my crazy sister-in-law the truth after she came between me and my husband. Update 1. Thanks everyone for the comments on my post. Taking your advice to heart, I decided to file a complaint with HR about the colleague who discussed my alleged affair with Matt with Deborah. I didn't confront her directly. I simply don't have the energy for another conflict. Despite what some of you wrote, I don't think Deborah is even capable of fabricating an entire screenshot. She's just not that smart. I hope the truth comes out when HR questions the colleague about the screenshot. Update 2. It's been a week since Deborah tried to destroy my marriage, and it's been a lot. Thank you to everyone who supported and comforted me. I still feel like I'm in limbo, sleeping 2-3 hours a night. I desperately needed a few days of peace and quiet. HR finally spoke with that colleague. It turned out Deborah had fed her distorted stories, and she believed them. The colleague immediately admitted she had messed up. She made up the story about me and Matt, thinking it wouldn't lead to anything. Our company has very strict anti-gossip policies, and she was harshly disciplined, suspended from work for a month. This underscores how serious the consequences are for spreading false rumors. It became a lesson for everyone about how destructive baseless slander can be. My name was cleared, and everyone saw how damaging lies can be. Finn had tried to contact me several times throughout the week. Yesterday, I finally agreed to meet with him and his parents. I made it clear I didn't want Deborah there. He agreed right away and promised she wouldn't be there. Finn looked guilty. We sat down with his parents and seriously discussed all the harm Deborah had caused. Finn sincerely apologized and admitted he had let his emotions get the best of him. But once he calmed down and thought it over, he realized how absurd her accusations were. His parents were upset too and expressed regret and apologized for how much this affected our relationship. Finn admitted he had let family loyalty cloud his judgment. He confessed he had acted impulsively and now, seeing the full extent of what Deborah had done, deeply regretted not trusting me. He promised to talk to Deborah and set firm boundaries. We also discussed the possibility of starting couples therapy to rebuild trust and work through the fallout of her accusations. His parents offered their support, acknowledging the family needed to come together to clean up this mess. Later, Finn said he understood why I told Deborah about the will, that I wanted to hurt her back just as much as she had hurt us. He wasn't angry with me for it and said he understood my actions. His parents also said they weren't upset that I had shared the information. They were planning to discuss it with her soon anyway. While I was thankful for their honesty, I also knew I couldn't allow Deborah to keep ruining my life. I firmly stated that I was cutting all ties with her and explained that I needed to protect my well-being and my marriage with Finn. I said her toxic influence had reached a point of no return, and now my priority would be our family and my emotional health. Not maintaining a relationship with someone who kept bringing chaos into our lives. Finn, still processing it all, supported my decision. He understood that we truly needed to distance ourselves from Deborah's destructive behavior. My in-laws looked a bit upset about my choice to end contact with her, but they agreed she had gone too far and acknowledged I had every right to cut her off. After that conversation, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Today, Finn is returning home from a short business trip. I missed him despite everything, and I'm really looking forward to spending the day together. Update 3. It's been 5 months since the last update. As expected, a few months ago, Deborah did eventually reach out. In her message, she completely ignored the lesson she should have learned. She justified her baseless accusations by claiming she was trying to protect her little brother and continued insisting that I was a threat to their family. The message was full of more accusations, like me supposedly forbidding Finn from talking to her and destroying their family, while conveniently portraying herself as the victim and ignoring all the chaos she caused. Deborah's total lack of remorse or even basic understanding of how serious her actions were only reinforced my decision to stay away from her. Over the following months, Finn and I focused on rebuilding trust in our marriage. We went to couples therapy to process the aftermath of her accusations. These sessions helped us communicate better and understand each other's feelings. Slowly but surely, our relationship began to heal. We continue to keep our distance from Deborah, despite the occasional attempts by his parents to reconcile us. We remain firm and are protecting our mental peace. Life has finally settled into a more peaceful rhythm. Work, family, and shared moments have become our priority. We've found strength in each other and left behind the chaos Deborah brought into our lives. Finn and I have grown stronger as a couple. We've learned how to overcome difficulties together. And even though the scars from her actions remain, our commitment to one another grows stronger each day. Choosing to prioritize our marriage over toxic relationships was the right decision. It brought stability and true happiness into our lives. That's all for now. Be sure to share your thoughts on this story in the comments. Thanks for watching until the end. Check out our previous video right here, and good luck to you.